If a stranger told you this, if you press this button, the man in the other room will receive an electric shock, and a scientist standing next to you calmly added, "You need to continue for the experiment," would you press it? Most people believe they wouldn't. But the real result, 65%. This video is about one of the most disturbing psychological experiments in history, the Milgram Obedience Experiment. And this experiment shows why people can do things they know are wrong. What is even more unsettling is this: these people were not bad, they were ordinary. 1961, America. World War II had not ended very long ago. The world was still trying to understand one question. Were Nazi officers really just obeying orders? Could a person harm another human being simply because an authority asked them to? A psychologist from Yale University decided to pursue this question, Stanley Milgram. The participants in the experiment were ordinary people: teachers, workers, salesmen, office employees. They were told the experiment was about learning and memory. They were taken into a room. In the other room was another participant. In reality, he was an actor, but the subject did not know this. The task was simple. They had to administer an electric shock for every wrong answer. It started at 15 volts, harmless, then 30, then 75, then 150. Around 150 volts, the first reaction occurred. The man in the other room shouted, "Please, I don't want to continue. I have a heart condition." The participant stopped and immediately turned to the scientist. "Do I have to continue?" The scientist simply said, "The experiment requires that you continue." A single sentence was enough. He didn't even try to persuade them. When you imagine yourself in that situation, you probably say you wouldn't press it, and you're probably very certain of that. But without realizing it, through small decisions we make in social life and work life, we display this behavior far more often than we think. It can appear in many examples, both large and small. Most participants felt deeply uncomfortable. They sweated. They trembled. Some even had nervous laughter. But they continued. 300 volts. The man no longer answered. The scientist said, "No answer is considered a wrong answer." The button was pressed again. 330 volts, 345 volts, 450 volts. Maximum. Silence. Milgram's prediction was this: less than 1% would go to the end. What actually happened? 65%. In other words, most participants continued administering what they believed could be fatal electric shocks. These people were not sadists. They were not psychopaths. They had no criminal history. They were normal people. And afterward, many of them said, "The responsibility wasn't mine. I was just following instructions." In psychology, this is called obedience to authority. The human mind makes decisions in a social environment, not alone. When an authority is present, the brain makes this conclusion: the responsibility for the decision is not mine. At that point, the moral burden shifts from the individual to the system. How far do you think the potential actions of an ordinary person can go when they simply follow orders and transfer responsibility to someone else? This may be one of the most frightening aspects of human nature. There may be no clear limit. Milgram was trying to understand the war, but what he found was larger than that. This wasn't only about war. It was about everyday life, workplaces, institutions, society. Sometimes people recognize something is wrong, but they continue anyway, because someone is telling them to. And the responsibility is dispersed. People usually do not want to do harm, but often. If an authority exists and responsibility is shared, the wrong thing can still be done. The Milgram experiment did not show that humans are evil. It showed this: under certain conditions, we may all be more obedient than we believe. And the real question is this: if you had been in that room, would you have gone to 450 volts? Or would you have taken your hand off the button?